Yes, everyone, what's going on? My name is Stephen Howson. This is 5 things that we learned watching Manchester United crash out of the Europa League against Sevilla again. Number 1, we got no issue creating chances, which is a refreshing change for Manchester United. So often we've been standing here and going, we just have to take more shots. We just have to make more chances. And if you make more chances, more goals go in. That's how it works, usually. Didn't work like that yesterday. Manchester United yesterday had 20 shots. 20 shots, 1 goal. 7 of which was on target. Why do keepers turn into Superman when they play us? I've been seeing this for my entire life, but it seems like keepers are starting to return to that Superman sort of status when they're playing Manchester United. 13 shots from inside the box. Now, I do like expected goals as an analysis tool. I think it really helps to see where you're having, because you can shoot from the halfway line 10 times. You're not scoring from there in the general run of play. It's a waste of a shot. Sometimes shooting from outside the box, very far. Let's say the Andreas Pereira shooting range. You know that that's not going to go in. You know that's going to be an issue. You know you're probably not going to be scoring from that either. But when you're taking them from inside the box, generally, you're looking at pretty high chance shots from inside the box. United had 13 of those and failed to score from, well, apart from the penalty, any of them. We only had 7 shots from outside the box. 6 of those shots in total got blocked. But United created enough chances. We created a hell of a lot of chances. We've just got to get a bit more clinical. And it could be an accumulation of just not our day at the races, the keeper having a worldie, just a number of factors. Football's very fine margins, and we was on the wrong side of those margins yesterday. Expected goals from individuals. Now, a decent chance is like a 0.2 or a 0.3 shot. So when a player has several of those, you're looking at he would have expected to have scored a goal. Marshall was worth 0.6 of a goal from 3 shots, so that's 3 pretty decent shots. You expect him to have scored one of them usually. Marcus Rashford was 0.5 from 4 shots. Probably taking them from pretty weak areas. He needs to probably get a little bit closer before he's doing shooting on that one. Bruno Fernandes 1.1. Penalty adds 0.7. So 0.3 from his. Not terrible. Mason Greenwood 0.3 from 4 shots. He's got to get a little bit better with those. Harry Maguire and Fred both 0.1. But that gives United a total of 2.7 goals. What you would have expected in that game. Sevilla only managed 0.9 of a goal on average across the whole. So Luke de Jong, he was 0.4, he was the goal scorer. Suso, 0.2, he was the goal scorer. And then they had 0.1, 0.1 from their other couple of shots. Overall, as a team, they was looking at 0.9 to United's 2.7. Now, that doesn't give you the full picture of a game, but it does kind of lead you to... If you lose a game 1-0, and you're like, mate, we had 40 shots, and they had 1. And sometimes the expected goals might reflect it and go, actually, probably should have won that game 5-0. They scored with a fluke and keeper just had a worldie. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it is a very useful analysis tool. What you can take away from that yesterday is United limited them to less than a goal in terms of expected goals, and we did enough to have gone and won the game. We didn't win the game, though. So that is on the players to start putting the ball in the back of the net with a little bit more accuracy. Number 2, there's no plan B. I mean, there's no plan B whatsoever. In the build-up to the game, I said there was a few things that I was worried about. If we can spot them here, us knobheads who run a YouTube channel and go, look, there's a couple of areas that United are going to really struggle here. Playing out the back is one of them, and the sort of press that they're going to give us is another one, and actually playing it through the middle because of the way this team plays. If we can identify a few of the things that United are going to struggle with, and that's exactly what we struggle with, why can't the management team? That, for me, is a worry. There isn't many options on the bench. It's not like you're sitting there with a prime Roy Keane and a prime Ruud van Nistelrooy and going, just don't fancy using him today. I think I'll just play all these lot. But you have got some different tools in your locker. I actually thought Odion Ighalo used maybe in that Mandzukic kind of wide target man sort of role could have been a very useful outlet for United to bypass the front and second line of the attack, get the ball into an area where United can be dangerous, because as we've shown, we created chances. But we made mistakes and invited pressure ourselves from where we lost the ball at times. If we could bypass those first 2 lines and start playing our football further up the pitch, then Manchester United might have had an entirely different proposition. Then you would have also had Mason Greenwood on the bench if you needed him to bring him on later in the game to change stuff. You can't just pick, there's my strongest 11 and fuck who we're playing. You do have to look at who you're playing. You do have to tailor your team and your tactics towards who you're playing. And honestly, whether or not that happened, and Ollie's been so good in the big games by and large, that I doubt that this happened this way. But I doubt that he didn't look at what was available and what he could have done and just said, well, we'll just fucking play our game. I'm sure he would have looked at the strengths and weaknesses of that team and tried to make adjustments. But from the outside looking in, and we don't get that information, that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like he'd just gone, we'll just play our best 11 and see what happens. I'm sure he didn't do that. But when you can predict 10 out of the 11, that means the opposition can predict 10 out of the 11 as well. Sometimes you have to throw a curveball in there. Sometimes there has to be a surprise. This isn't, do you know what? Pep Guardiola got some abuse for, and rightly so, for the way he wants to tinker. But Pep Guardiola's dealing with a team that's fucking phenomenal. A team that when it ticks is basically unplayable. But he shits it and changes his tactics. We're not dealing with a United that's firing on the sort of cylinders that Manchester City were or are or even capable of. So you have to tailor your team. This isn't, when it was the prime Barcelona team, they didn't have to change to who the fuck they were playing. They just went out and played their game because they were so good. United aren't at that level yet. So we have to take into account opposition strengths and weaknesses, and we have to respect those. And for me, the absolute lack of a plan B. First substitute was so late. It had no time to make any impact whatsoever. Now, I empathise with the lack of options that are on the bench, but I think he could have shuffled his deck a little bit different. And I think he could have played it a little bit different to how he did. And ultimately, we're out after the back of 3 semi-finals because of that. Right then, number 3, transfers are definitely needed. We saw that Ollie really doesn't trust what he's bringing on. He brings on Igalo and James. You've got Mata. Not really any of those you're going to see bring on and change the game, and certainly the way the game was going, none of those was really good enough options off the bench. When everyone's wondering, what will Jadon Sancho do to the likes of Mason Greenwood? What would somebody like a Jack Grealish or a Van der Beek mean to the rest of the midfield? It means depth and it means options. That's where United have struggled for me. We had to play that 11 so often, so frequently, that 1, teams can start to figure you out, and 2, those players start to tire at a much higher rate than anybody else around them. I think it's also a very interesting stat as well that the 4 teams that progressed in the Champions League had played the least amount of football in the last 60 days. I think that's very telling. And I think people will talk about the 3 months that the players had off during lockdown. I know players didn't have a single day off during lockdown. They literally worked every day trying to maintain some level of fitness so there wasn't a massive impact when they returned. There's also the stress of everything that's going on. We've all been stressed in the last few months. But a professional athlete where 1% makes a difference at the top, that stress can be enough to throw the wobble, and we've seen United cope pretty well post-lockdown, but ultimately there's going to be some sort of a crash and some sort of a fallout, and I think the combining factors of the same 11 playing week in, week out, some of the injuries that we'd accumulated, some players just haven't looked themselves post-restart. I think Paul Pogba, Marcus Rashford are 2 that are in that category, and the team has just limped over the line to get to where we are now. We need those big signings. We need those transfers that are going to come in and say, I start when I'm fit. Because that's what we did this season with Bruno, with Wan-Bissaka, and with Harry Maguire. Those players came in and improved our starting 11. We arguably need several more of those. But we also need some of those backup players that can come in and do a job and give that guy a night off. Because you can't play 60 games a season. There has to be rotation, and there has to be common sense when it comes to utilising that squad. Earlier in the year, we did it very effectively with the Europa League. But lately, it's just been same lads, crack on, get on with it. Number 4, it's time for a much needed rest. Manchester United have now been playing over a year in this season. And United are now going to have the shortest break of any team playing in English football. We're having a day extra of playing over Manchester City. After a very long campaign, which United went to the semi-final in every competition, United have really gone through the ringer. And with a squad that we all didn't have faith in at the start of the season, and with some big injuries to some key players, I hope now that the 2-week holiday that I've heard Solskjaer promise is a proper 2-week holiday, and that they don't even do any runs up and down the beach, nothing. I think the mental recharge, the nervous system recharge that these players need is over and above what the fitness capabilities are going to be. And proper mental break will do these players good, because next season is going to be an absolute grueler with the Euros at the end of it as well. Luckily, it seems like there might be some international friendlies getting shit-canned, and there's going to be no replays in the FA Cup. But Manchester United once again will be expected to go deep into the Champions League, the FA Cup, and in the League Cup, as well as competing for a better position in the league. And that's going to be hard work. And finally, what did we learn? We learnt this team can progress. Now, it ends on a sour note, as it was likely to do when you finish a season by being knocked out of a trophy. It's different, this little post-season Europa sort of thing that we're seeing. But I kind of liked it in the end. The sort of festival of European football to finish off the domestic season was quite good. Or at least the club season was quite good. I did enjoy it. I think the season has been a relative success. And I mean relative because it's progress. And it's undeniable progress. We've seen the individual development of certain players. We know that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is liked by the players. We know that this group responds to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We've seen us win lots of derbies. We've absolutely wiped the floor with Frank Lampard's Chelsea, except for that semi-final where we rotated and probably got it wrong. There's been some real encouraging signs this year. Rome was not built in a day. This project is long. But for the first time, I think, really, post Sir Alex Ferguson, it feels like our Manchester United is slowly coming back to us. It ain't there yet, and it might not even be there in the next year, but I feel like we're on the right track. Laters.